Namaste.
Namaste.
Welcome to Maafa 2022, our first master class. And I'm just so delighted to see so many. And we began this morning under the Healing Hut. And how many of you had an opportunity to participate in the Healing Hut?
Oh, yes.
What a powerful and moving experience. I want to thank Dr. Mike Elam, and I want to thank all of our healing team that is working to make that happen. And it'll be happening every single day at 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't know about you, but I felt a certain sense of calm and peace and serenity right here in the hood. I wish I had somebody to talk to early on a Monday morning, right? I felt serenity, and I want to thank our team for making that happen. Well, we're ready for our very first presenter, but before we do that, we know we started the year out covenanting that we would do no activity, nothing in this ministry without prayer first. And so I'm going to ask Pastor if she would lead us to the throne of grace.
Namaste. Let us pray. Most gracious and eternal God, God, how we thank you for this day. For God, this is the day that you have made, and we will do our absolute best to rejoice and to be glad. God, whether our feet are physically here in the sanctuary or whether they are in the virtual sanctuary, God, we give you thanks. So God, do what it is that you do best, and that is to be God all by yourself. We give you thanks. We love you in the matchless name of Jesus, Yeshua HaMashiach, we do pray. Amen, amen, and Ashe.
Ashe, Ashe.
Last year, we had the honor of having Dr. Daniel Black with us to share a dramatic reading of The Coming and how we were so moved by this work that we read as a ministry. We've asked him to come back and to give us a thorough teaching to help us to delve deeper into the history of the transatlantic slave trade and to help us to fully grapple with and sit in the context of Maafa. I want to ask our cast members that are in the sanctuary, would you please stand? We have curated these master classes mainly for you. It will be a year-long study and orientation. It will also include situated learning. We will travel together to Charleston, South Carolina, and you will lead us, and members of our congregation will also do some of the work together. But this was done so that we would have a deeper understanding of the work that God has called us to do. You are in preparation to be griots of the village. You may be seated. Thank you. Let me formally, again, welcome to our city and to our ministry, to the campus of the St. Paul Community Baptist Church, and to St. Paul Nation, our speaker, Daniel Black, who is also known as Daniel Omotosho Black. And he will explain that. Is a native of Kansas City, Missouri, yet spent the majority of his childhood years in Blackwell, Arkansas. He was granted full scholarship to Clark College in Atlanta, Georgia, where he majored in English. Upon graduation from Clark College, magna cum laude in 1988, he was granted a full scholarship, a full graduate fellowship to Temple University to pursue a PhD in African American Studies. As a tenured associate professor, he now aims to provide an example of young African Americans of the importance of self-knowledge and communal commitment. I'm also glad to announce that he is an award winning author of The Coming, but also his newest offering, Don't Cry for Me. We Will Have You Back. early next year
Yes, sir.
to do a dramatic reading and to take us through that.
Yes, sir.
We're just delighted to have you, and we count you a friend to our streaming audience. Welcome. Share this stream. You're about ready to receive information that I believe is transformational and will change your life. Let us receive in the St. Paul Nation way our speaker this morning for our masterclass, Dr. Daniel Black.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Wow. I never cease to be amazed at the love you share with me. Thank you tremendously. You know, I really thought, I said, well, at 9:30, 10 o'clock on a Monday morning, there'll probably be 5 people in this class. That's kind of what I thought. But this is fantastic. This is wonderful. Thank you tremendously for being here. My elders here, Mama E.T. Hari. Some of you certainly know of her, and you're going to hear more from her. Mama E.T. Hari, thank you, ma'am. I told her this morning I had prayed that she overslept and didn't get here, but here she is. I want to do something really tricky and I'm hoping very transformative with you today. This is a master class. And a master class in my head means that all of you already know the basic, right? That's what master means to me. That means you already know the middle passage. You know folks came. You know that the middle passage happened. You know the name Maafa. You know the difference between loose packers and tight packers. You got all of that. You know what it means to be jettisoned overboard. You got all of that. You got all of that. That's my assumption, right, in this master class. So my task then is to hopefully present something before you that either you didn't know or didn't think of quite in this way. And so here's where I want to start. I want to start by saying that Christianity sort of kind of messed us up in one sense. And what I mean by that is most people who think they're called believe they're called to preach. But not every calling is for preaching. But everyone is supposed to be called. Right? And so some people are in the pulpit who really don't have any business in the pulpit. Right? But they do have business in the church. Because the calling is real. But we come from people who understand, see, the word calling, what's messing us up is the English. All right? To be summoned. I might even want to say that instead of calling, we might even if we have to use English, you were conjured. Right? But this time, God did the conjuring of you. Right? And if you were conjured, that means there was something that you brought to the planet. There's an offering. Right? And so with that said, what I really want to talk about with you today, that can seem very simple, but I think it's very complicated, is concerning the middle passage is who came, right? Who actually came? I don't mean black people. I don't mean African people. We got that. I don't even mean men, women. We got that. I don't mean that. I don't mean what were their names, right? I try to handle that issue in the coming, right? I don't mean that either. When I say who came, what I'm really talking about is which gifts did white folks see and want? That's really what I'm talking about. Because the gifts we had in the motherland are the gifts that have saved us here. The problem is we've either misnamed them or missed them altogether. Because we keep looking for the gifts according to spiritual gifts biblically. And I want to suggest, and there is some parallel, but I want to suggest that there are gifts that came with us, and I want us to even start looking for what was the evidence of that gift on that ship. See, if I was a healer in the village, I was a healer in the middle of the ocean. If I was the dancer in the village, I was the dancer when they danced the slaves. You see what I'm saying? And what I want us to understand is shifting us continentally did not destroy the gift. right? That did not destroy the gift. But the first thing I want to do, and I've done some painstaking work over the years from various communities, various nations in West Africa, to discern what I think are the 8 categories of gifts. And these are gifts that, from my study of just how communities worked, how communities function, various ways in which people interacted with one another, that the average African nation you could go to and find these gifts. And I believed that when Europeans encountered our people, they saw the manifestation of these gifts. But let me be clear, I'm naming them. Now, let me tell you why that's important too. Because it's important that we find traditions, and it's also important that we create them. Right? See, part of my job as a scholar is to name the tradition that people either threw away or missed. Right? So what I did was I took Kiswahili terms as just a major language and applied it to many gift areas just to explain the nature of those gifts. So what I want us to do, we're going to do some note-taking, right? Nobody came to a master class with no paper. I mean, you didn't do that. You didn't do that. No paper, no electronic, no phone. Nobody did that, right? You didn't do that. Because we're going to have pages and pages and pages of notes by the time we finish this. See, if you did that, then you came to a lecture. But that's not what this is. This is a master class. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through these 8 categories, right, of spiritual gifts. And I've argued that everybody in a community, everybody's spiritual gift falls under one of these umbrellas. And the reason this is important and powerful, I think, is because if you have a community of people and somebody is unclear of their gifting, they're also unclear of their value. If you got some folks who don't know why they're part of the group, they're just lingering and rolling on, right? Then you're going to have a community of dead weight, right? And dead weight is heavy. It's heavy. It's heavy. It's also a heavy thing when you're trying to use part of your life force to make somebody else convinced that their presence is necessary. Wow. See, that's not a human being's job. It's not a human being's job to assign value. Wow. That's not a human being's job. That's your job to construct it. After you get clear of your spiritual calling. If you've not been called, then you're in this category. You're in this category. You're in this category. See, and the reason the calling is important is, you know, there are people who really can sing, but don't. There are people sitting around with the power to heal in their hands, and they don't. Which means you can have the gift, and it never be activated. Right? The point of the calling is to activate the gift, not to give it to you. You come from the spirit realm with the gift. The baby has the gift. But until it is activated for all practical purposes, it's dormant. Yep, all of us have done this. You looked at somebody and said, golly, what a gift. Oh, Jesus. And they're walking around like, I don't even know what you're talking about. We've all seen it, some 2-year-old, 3-year-old who's exceptionally precocious, who's really bright, and they're just playing, and we already see the gift, right? But you can be 40 years old and 50 years old, right? And absolutely, positively unclear about why you're in community. If you don't know why you're in a community, you are dead weight to it. So, 8 categories. And these are categories, again, we name. Number 1, the category of what we call uzuri. U-Z-U-R-I. Uzuri. And uzuri is really the gift of what I call the aesthetics. And the gift of the aesthetics is a person whose thrust, right? A person whose thrust is to help people understand the beauty of their very existence. A person whose love in life is to literally demonstrate our majesty. These are people who often dance, they often sing, because it's about expression, right? And the point of this expression, or this expressive being, is for them to always be holding up a mirror to the rest of us, so we never forget how glorious we are, right? There are people who function that way. These are people who tend to be very creative. These are people who wear what the rest of us might call kind of outlandish clothes. These are people who might wear big hoop earrings, right? These are folks who might wear stripes on top and polka dots on, and the rest of us are saying, does that match? Does that go together? Right? But they walk like this. They live in that energy. Because what they're trying to show you is anything matches if you love yourself. Of course it matches because I got it on. It matches because I'm marvelous and I'm magnificent. But if we're not careful, we'll call those people arrogant and we'll dismiss them and want them to sit down. They're really trying to teach the rest of us to glorify in yourself. Can you see your own beauty? Can you see your own? And beauty, I'm going to go a little, it's not really an issue of cute, right? Beauty is really an issue of value, right? Beauty is really an issue of, are you certain what the community would miss in your disappearance? Are you clear the hole that would be left if you leave? See, if you don't have that, then you're not clear. Then you're not clear. You're not clear. You're not clear. You're not clear, right? Those of the aesthetics, their desire is to loosen cultural norms and standards such that anyone and everyone can be beautiful, right? See, the power of Uzuri, the power of aesthetics in the African community is that everybody can have it. They're not just like in the West, certain people who are quote unquote naturally pretty, certain people who are naturally gorgeous, which is what we do here in this land, right? Which really, side note, which really has messed up our relational being, right? Because everybody is trying to figure out how to be associated with the two people everybody else finds gorgeous. All right. All right. Let me just leave that. Let me leave that alone. Help me, oh God. But there's a price to pay for that. There's a price to pay for that. There's a price to pay for that. And see, the West has done their aesthetic ordering really strongly. Have you ever noticed that ugly white people get married anyway? Somebody's going to get this in just 1 minute. Because the whiteness is the value, not what it looks like. The whiteness by itself is the value, right? This is why if you get black actors, they've got to be beautiful and talented. It's got to be a Morris Chestnut. It has to be a Sanaa Lathan. It has to be beautifully talented people. But for white folks, like if you take an Anthony Hopkins is not handsome to anybody. Because all he has to be is talented. Because the whiteness does the work, right? But what I'm saying is in the African community, it should be the same case, right? I'm beautiful because my ancestors are beautiful. See, if I'm ugly, my ancestors are ugly. That has to be true, right? And that's extremely important for us to understand. But somebody who comes to the earth with the gift of Uzuri, that person's job, right, is to keep us reminded that in every manifestation, in every physical possibility of African manifestation, that is God. And some people have that gift. So the question really becomes, on the middle passage, where were those people? They were on there. They were there. And I'm going to show you in a minute what those folks were doing, I think. All right. Next gift house. That's Uzuri. The next gift house is what I call Msaada. M-S-A-A-D-A. Msaada. Or what the Bible calls the gift of helps. Helps, H-E-L-P-S, helps. Now be very careful, because in this instance, help is not simply assisting, right? The gift, and let me pause here long enough to say too here. A gift, a talent, and a skill are not the same thing. Right? It's not the same thing. Well, Dr. Black, what's the difference? Number one, a gift, by definition, is invisible. It is invisible. It is not learned by here. It comes with you in your creation. That is a gift. A talent, you have physical proclivities for a talent. Somebody might be biologically tall, so they are predisposed to basketball. That makes sense to me. You ever hear people who, oh my God, everybody in their family sings, right? There's something in the DNA structure that actually lends itself to that. That's all in this physical realm, right? Those are talents, the thing that you have a natural proclivity to do, all right? A skill is an artistic or industrial behavior which you learn. You can learn it. Now, here's where this gets really profound and tricky. If your discipline is excellent enough, your skill can look like a talent. If your discipline is excellent enough, your skill can look like a talent. Well, how would you know the difference? It will take a master whose discipline can discern between did you learn that or did you have a natural proclivity for it? Because I'm here to tell you, if you find two people, for example, who play the piano, and one person learned it merely as a skill, the other person has a musical proclivity, a master can hear the difference. You can hear that. It's like somebody who learns to cook when they're grown and somebody who's a master cook. When you eat, you can tell the difference. You can know the difference, right? That's funny because, somebody who just learned how to make the skill dressing last week versus grandma's dressing. Right? That's a different dressing. Right. Sometimes we say, I don't even know what she put in there, but I know whose dressing this is. Right? Likewise, in terms of gift, skill, and talent. All right. Msaada. The gift of Msaada is the gift of filling gaps. Filling gaps. The ability to tell others what they are missing. It is an observational gift that examines things and tells you what part you don't have. So the gift of helps is really a gift of spiritual sight. If you're moving, right, if you're physically moving and you need some help moving, calling people to come help you move, that's not a gift. You don't need a gift for that. That's not the gift of helps. You need some assistance. Everybody understand what I'm saying? The gift of helps is this. I've built this house, and it seems it's finished, but something just ain't right about it. Something's just, I don't know what it is. Something's just not right about it. Well, and the Msaada would ask, well, what was your vision to begin with? Here was my vision. And the Msaada person would say, here's the problem. You don't have enough windows. You don't have enough windows. Because you moved into this house. You moved into this house because you wanted to downsize. Okay? No problem. That was my original vision. You moved to this house to downsize. Then why are the windows important? Because you wanted to downsize the space, not your spirit. And an Imsa'adian would be able to help you discern and to see that. Right? I'm in love with so-and-so. I think this is the person I'm supposed to marry. Right? The Imsa'adian said, do you? Do you? Okay. All right. What is it that you cannot live without? Wow, I cannot live without them. The Imsa'adian would say, that's definitely not the one then. Then that's definitely not the one. That's definitely not. The Imsa'adian is always searching for what gap you might have stepped over because you might have moved too quickly. Right? You might have shifted faster than you wanted to go. So there's something left out. Right? That's the Imsa'adian. What did we miss? Like when you're reading The Coming, there's one point where a Wolof man raises his hand and he spreads his fingers, right? And he doesn't say anything. Everybody's on the boat looking at him. He doesn't say anything. And after a while, he starts closing those fingers into a tight fist, right? He's telling them why we were captured. What did we miss? While we were divided, they came in. We were not enslaved because Europeans were strong. That's not why we were enslaved. That's not it. We were enslaved because we spoke proverbs we didn't live. We got tired of going to rituals. So we started skipping them. I mean, maybe, listen, I don't have to go to this one. Well, that's the one. That's the one, right? And the gift of Imsa'ada helps a person to know that, helps a person to understand that, right? Imsa'adians, as I call them, are really the mortars in a brick structure. They're the ones who really put the pieces together. Imsa'adians are usually kind of invisible people. They're not generally people who like to be seen, like to be heard. They do not like to be in attention. These are not people who want to be center stage. These are folks who want to... Yes, ma'am. These are people, but here's the thing. They're extremely sensitive to being overlooked. They're extremely sensitive to being overlooked because they want to be valued, they want to be a part of the thing without having to be in the center of it. Right? Extremely important. They make fantastic personal assistants, managers. They make unbelievable financial gurus, right? Because the job of a financial guru is not to just tell you what to do with your money. It's also to tell you how you're losing it, right? Here's where you're losing $200 a month, and you've looked at your budget 50 times. Wow, how can I be losing easily? And they will show you that. They will absolutely show you that. They make amazing interior decorators. Why? Because these people, they study details of things, right? Now, this is not my gift. When I tell you this is not my gift, but I know many Imsa'adians, and they help me tremendously. This is not my gift. I'm not the detail person at all. I'm the person who, we'll get to my gift in a minute. I'm the person who, I love the excitement and the joy of the thing. Like, I love the party, right? But Imsa'adians will whisper, what time is your presentation in the morning? And then they'll walk right on past you. You'll be like, dang. Okay. Right? It's really powerful. It's really powerful. Several weeks ago, I was away from home, and my doors are never locked on my house because I have a lot of young folks and they come in and out. I just threw the key away about 20 years ago because I was making too many copies. I mean, it doesn't make sense to make 50 copies, right? And I came in my living room, and I came back from a speaking engagement, and there was this unbelievably beautiful grand chair sitting in my living room, right? And I was like, oh, my God, who gave me this chair? right? So I called around trying to figure out, right, who gave me the chair. And a lot of kids got together and they said they bought a chair. And they said, because you need to learn how to relax. But they didn't say relax. They didn't say relax. And I said, oh, I got it. And M. Saaden was leading this. They bought the chair. Because the chair will invite you better than a critique. The critique I could dismiss. But every time I go into the living room, the chair smiles at me. But see, it takes an M. Saaden to understand. And what's funny is the M. Saaden who's doing that doesn't even know she's an M. Saaden. She just thinks, well, that's just what I thought would be the thing to do. That's a gift. That's a gift. Because see, with the kind of gift I have, I would have bought somebody a ticket to Fiji. You need to relax, right? Hell, let's go on vacation, right? But you know, most people know that you can actually go on vacation and not relax too. Yes, a vacation from the vacation, if y'all feel what I'm saying, right? Okay. Next gift house. Kuhamasisha. 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 Or the gift of inspiration. The ability to lift bowed down heads. The ability to motivate the unmotivated. To excite the depressed. The ability to convince people of an optimistic thing that really is against all the odds, and really there's no evidence for it, but the Kuhamasishan believes it anyway. Somebody says, well, the doctor says that I have a 90% chance of passing away within a year from cancer. The Kuhamasishan says, that means you have a 10% chance to live. So you're fine. Fine? How am I fine? Because you don't even need 10. You really only need 1%. 1% simply means it's possible. See, that's a Kuhamasishan. Do you understand what I'm saying, right? The job of the Kuhamasishan is to rearrange variables. To rearrange variables and possibilities. So that people believe in things that are really unbelievable. And I'm here to tell you right now, a Kuhamasishan can change your life. I'm telling you, can change your very life. You listen to what I'm telling you. A Kuhamasishan can talk to you in a few minutes and you're like, okay, I got it. Okay, I was going to quit school. No, I'm not. I got this. Right? The Kuhamasishan will tell you, listen, if you're swimming halfway out into the river and you're about to drown, don't you know swimming back is going to take you the same strength as drowning? So just breathe for a minute. You got this. This is the Kuhamasishan. Say, come on. Oh, yes, come on. The team is down. It's 40-10, and we're in the fourth quarter. The Kuhamasishan says, show out time. Here we go. Not like, I don't know, this ain't looking good. This gonna be rough. Maybe we should just write this one up. No, not the Kuhamasishan. The Kuhamasishan is the one who's always trying to get us to understand that there's a way that you can dream a thing and the universe agree with you. And it'll shift it. These are ultimate optimists. These people are optimistic all the time. They tend to be people with unbelievable energy. Their energy just vibrates like that, right? And sometimes folks are like, woo, you too much, right? They're excitable all the time, right? These people tend to be loud. That not always, but tend to be loud. They tend to be the center. If you want a party, invite that one. Invite that one. If you get that one, everybody else is coming. Because people really just love to plug into that person, right? This is extremely, 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 extremely important. And again, when you start thinking about that, the question is, on the slave ship, where were they? In fact, I want to argue that every single one of us would have died if they weren't on that ship. That's what I want to argue. There were Kuhamasicians on that ship. Absolutely. This was the one who was chained next to somebody they never even knew and said, hey, listen. In their own language, of course. We're not going to die. We shall live. We're going to live. Where are we going? I don't know. I don't know. But I know who's going. So listen, hold on. Brother, sister, hold on. These people don't know us. What? Listen, just hold on one moment, and they going to understand who we are. While everybody else is hollering and crying, you know what I'm saying? That's the Kuhamasician. All right? Next gift house. Is this boring, y'all? We good? Okay. Usawa. U-S-A-W-A. Usawa. The gift of order and balance. Justice. Usawa people are very no-nonsense people. These are people who they might not smile very often. These are people who don't necessarily seem excitable. These are people who seem almost rigid, right? Very structured, very ordered, but they always show up. They always, always, always show up. Usawa people are very concerned with fairness, which is why justice is in the center of their gift. They love executing a plan, not necessarily creating it, but executing it. The creators of the plan is another gift. These are people who, okay, we're going to have the Maafa. We're going to start at 7. We need a setup crew for 5 o'clock, and here's what we need. You want an Usawa person to handle that. Because an Usawa person will be here at 4:50, right? Set up this whole thing, set up this. By the time the presentation starts, they're sitting in the back. But it's done. Like me, I'm a Kuhamasician. You don't want the Kuhamasician for that. Because what I do, right, starts at 7, 6:30, it's me. And, you know what? Put a couple of chairs up there. We'll let spirit move. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Well, it's supposed to be 7 chairs. Listen, it could be 18 chairs. Listen, just let God do what God's going to do, you know. The Usawa person is saying, excuse me, we need 7 chairs because that's what we practiced. It's supposed to be 7, so let's let it be 7, okay? Not 8, let's let it be 7. Y'all finding each other? Now, here's why this is important. There is spirituality in the exactness of that 7. Right? That's not just rigidity. How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? There's biblical equivalent to this too. Jesus told the man at Bethesda, go down to that water, and I want you to wash. How many times? 7 times. But, listen, it's the same water. Couldn't you get healed after the 4th wash? Now, Jesus, come on, for real. Now, surely after the 6th wash, I mean, come on now. In other words, the Holy Ghost is in obedience. Spirit moves in exactitude. It's not just arbitrary. There's order. The universe has order. I don't care how anxious you get, you will not get 36 hours in a day just because you're having such a great time. The sun's going to set and it's going to rise. And you should act accordingly. In other words, the whole universe is really Usawa. It's ordered. It is structured. It is balanced. And there are people who come to the planet to help us as a community understand why we need that in terms of our communal ordering and our communal structure. These people can, again, they can seem dry in personality. Right. But let me pause here for a minute, too, and say, one of the things I think is important that we do as African people and as church folks, too, is it's going to be really important, y'all, as we move forward spiritually, that we stop using ourselves as a model of what we want all beings to be. You've got to be able to see God in people who ain't nothing like you. Their personality is nothing like yours. You might say, hey, good morning. And they say, how you doing? You got to understand, that was fine. You don't need no meeting. You don't need no meeting. There's no need to go somewhere. She barely even spoke to me. You don't need to call the pastor. You don't have no issue. You don't have no issue. Because what's going to mess you up is when you see that person in the afternoon and they say, how you doing? And you're like, wait a minute, I spoke to you this morning. And they'll say, and I spoke to you. I didn't dance and bubble over like you. See, that's one way of being. But we don't need one way of being as the model for all beings. When you do that, you erase gifts. Right? And you need every gift, right, for the house to be excellent. All right. The Usawa is one who loves step-by-step process. They want to know, is there an agenda for the meeting? I know we're having a meeting. Was there an agenda for the meeting? The rest of us are saying, listen, just come to the meeting. Is there an agenda for the meeting? And is it printed? Who has the agenda? Who has? Right. And then, of course, we're fussing and arguing. Listen, make this child an agenda. Make this child an agenda so they can just be quiet. Right? The real truth is as you make the agenda, you are actually becoming more organized for your own meeting. You think you're doing it for them. You're actually doing it for you. Because the lack of the agenda is going to be the reason you have hell in that meeting. That's coming. Right? In other words, you got to understand how every single gift comes to make us more excellent and more wonderful, even the ones you don't like, the ones you don't prefer. Its job is to make you more excellent. So again, on the slave ship, who were these Usawa people? They were on there. God help me. They were on there. How do you know? Because in some ships they speak of, there were people who took their fingernails and they marked in the plank, right? They were counting the days. That is an Usawa activity. Why is that important? Because we later want to know how long were our ancestors on the boat. While somebody was crying, they were scratching marks in that plank as a gift to the future, right? And so we know things like, what waterway are we in? When they were taken aboard deck to dance, they would look around and try to see the position of the sun relative to the ship and the boat, right? And how do we know? How do we even know this? Because when the ship lands, right, in places like America, we start singing these realities. See, early black spirituals are really Africans telling us about the Middle Passage. 'Tis the old ship of Zion. That's the Middle Passage. How do you know? Because it has landed many a thousand. Get on board. Right. Come on now. All these songs talking about troubled waters, stormy seas. Right? Because they just got off of it. All right. Is that 3 or 4? That's 4. Do we want to break a second or we want to roll on? Okay, then I'm going to roll on. Okay, I'm going to roll on. Next gift house, the Jali. Jali, or what the French call the griot. Now, I want to, all of us have heard of Jollies, all of us have heard of griots. I want to kind of extend the boundary a bit of our understanding of Jolly. Most people think of Jolly as storytellers, and I think that's just far too narrow, right? Because the truth of the matter is many people can tell a story, right? So that could actually lend people confusion in terms, are you a Jolly, are you not? I don't know that Jolly was so much one who told stories versus people who are what I call the purveyors of culture, right? The purveyors of culture. And what does that mean? People whose gift, remember I'm talking gifts, people whose gift was the examination of all things collective to see if in fact, and to make sure, right, that it upholds the character of the people. See, if we had Jali really functioning in this land, Mama E.T. Hari, some of what has happened in hip-hop would have been different. Purveyors of culture, right? Somebody who tells our story to us, right, unto exhaustion, so that you couldn't possibly not know. It would be impossible for you to not know, right? People who have the artistic ability to translate our story into a dance, right? And dance it before you. And it's your own story, right? Purveyors of culture are those who are concerned about all cultural manifestations and the way in which those manifestations either do or do not really uphold who we are as people. And if they do not, right, the Jali will do a correction. Right? The Jali will ask, can we talk about this? In other words, it's kind of like a personified critic. Right? And a critic is very important. Because y'all, the job of a critic also is not simply to criticize. The job of a critic is to praise. See, criticism doesn't mean to tell me what you don't like. Criticism is tell me how excellently the thing was done. Tell me what else needs to be done. If you're going to critique a play, there's got to be the possibility that it was wonderful. Right? That is criticism. That's very important. Because some people in some churches, y'all don't have them here, but there are some people who take joy in being critical. Seems like every chance they get to be critical, they run to it. The way you know that a person is just being critical or just being negative is when we do excellent, are they the first in line to praise? See, some communities have what they call praise singers, right? People whose job, so to speak, right, was to remind us and to glorify us for our great work. A person who is a Jali ought to be clear, right? How marvelous we are, how wonderful we are, how excellent we are, ought to tell us that, right? The purveyors of culture, the Jali in America, the Jali in the West, is what we call the media. The American media will absolutely make you praise America. That's their Jali, right? So we got to be clear that our own Jali, every time we gather, the Jolly is supposed to have something to say. Every single time we gather, if it's for 5 minutes, the Jolly are supposed to get up and say, did anybody see that production last night? Were you here? Were you here? Did you miss it? Did you see that production last night? There were 1,000 people in this room. Someone says there weren't 1,000. There were 1,000 people in this room. Some were visible and some were invisible. But they were here. We went on a journey to the motherland and back. Someone told us the price we paid when we left the plantation to find each other. Have you seen my mother? Have you seen my father? Have you seen my little brother? My little brother was 10 then. He would be 45 now. Oh, they taught us. See, this is what a Jolly would do. That's not the same thing as, good job, crew. If you diminish the magnitude of that moment with simply a hand clap, that won't do. That won't do. That won't do. That won't do. And be very careful here, you all. As black people, some of the legacy of slavery is that we are master critics. We are masters of critique of the self. If I'd say, give me synonyms for nappy hair, kinky, coarse, rough, the list goes on and on and on. Now describe it without any of those terms, we'd be silent. Because the joy of black hair, we've not yet assigned a vocabulary. Right? And the reason this is important is because we often step over our grandeur. We just step over it easily, and we just go, oh, good job. Oh, wow, that's good. But let somebody misstep. Let the pastor slip. It'll be everybody in the congregation be talking. But a child can graduate from high school whose mother died last year. And we don't even say nothing. Don't say a word. Right? This is really why young folks are cussing us out in hip-hop. Because those who were supposed to praise them, those who were supposed to see the excellence in them even as they were growing and struggling, it seemed like we missed it. Because we keep telling black kids, here's what we need you to do. Here's what's wrong with this generation. Here's the part you're missing. Listen, why don't you pick up a book and read? There's always some critique. But the song of praise, they should hear that in their head day and night. And they should hear it even when they messed up. That's right. All right. That's the Jolly's job. All right. Okay. Mama Etar, I'm okay? Okay, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. Okay. I want to go to Maafa. M-A-A-R-I-F-A. M-A-A-R-I-F-A. Maafa. The gift of knowledge or wisdom. These are people whose spiritual proclivity is information. They love information. They love fact gathering. They tend to be people who read profusely. Now, sometimes these people can be annoying too, though, because you ever had the person who come up to you and say, do you know John F. Kennedy actually had a birthmark right under his arm? You ever seen those people? And you're like, what? Why are you telling me? Like, who cares? Like, so what? Right. They're fact gatherers, right? But there's a utility in it. There's a utility in it. There's absolutely positively a utility in it, right? These are people who understand that knowledge and the lack of knowledge can be the death of a community. And these are people who understand the connection between knowledge and wisdom, but they're not the same. You can be wise and have very little knowledge. And one can have great knowledge and be poor in wisdom. People say things like, well, knowledge is information, wisdom is application. That's a little too rigid, and that's not quite right? Knowledge is certainly information, but knowledge is not only information. Knowledge is also, it's information, but it's also knowing what am I supposed to do with this information. See, what I teach students in class is until you have analyzed, you have not yet learned. Right? You've got to analyze before learning happens. Right? Wisdom, right? Wisdom really is what happens when you put knowledge with ancestral insight. With ancestral insight. And the Ma'arifin, that's what they do. These are people who they feast on variables and gathering variables of things. They enjoy scavenging for statistics and figures and numbers and records and documents. They're masters of questions. Masters of questions. These people will ask you 1,000 questions in a day, right? I have one friend who's and I have to tell him you get 3 questions. But I just can't take it. He's not wrong. It just wears me out. They're extremely curious because they're always questioning a thing. They're always wondering, is that the way we should do it? I don't know. These are people who can be what looks like very emotionless because they are committed to what the facts say, not what I feel about it. They make amazing judges, philosophers, sages, researchers. Okay, next gift is the gift of Kiroho. 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 And Kiroho is the gift of invisibility. It's the gift of the spirit, the gift of spirituality. People under this gift house tend to be dreamers. People who dream heavily, dream vividly, and tend to remember them. They are what we might call the mouthpiece of the ancestors. These are people who move between the tangible and the intangible. These are people who will say things like, oh yeah, the Maafa is supposed to start September 20th. Can we start the 27th? And folks are like, why? There's just an energy. There's just an energy that I think is not right. I think the best alignment might be on the 27th, if that's okay with everybody. Folks say, well, what's wrong with the 20th? Like, is it going to rain? Is there a storm? It's just. I just have a sense that if we could wait till the 27th, this would be better, right? These are also people who might call you and say, is your car okay? And you're like, what's wrong with my car? check your tires. You're like, what? What they're not saying is that they had a dream, and in the dream, it was your car, right? And they saw it on the side of the road, right? Now, here's what's really profound. Not only do you need Kiroho people in community, but I am a firm believer that some of these people told us that those Europeans were coming. I believe that. And we said, okay, yeah, right. No, they're coming. Okay, well, then they'll just have to, well, listen, we have warriors. Okay, all right. These are people who said things like, the tree told me. Ha ha! What? Yeah, the tree told me. The tree told you. Yes. Okay, did the tree tell you to be quiet too? See, we are doing all of this. But the point is that you're actually going to pay for it. Anytime you dismiss the sight of any gift, right, the community pays. The community is going to pay. We're going to pay. These were people who on the Middle Passage said, let me tell you why we're going to survive. Because you don't enslave Yemaya's children and put us on a boat. The last thing you'd want to do is put us in the water. So just be cool. They should have burned us. You don't put Yemaya's children in the water. In fact, all we've really done is positioned us to be born again. So just be cool. Just be cool. All of that was on this boat. See, listen, most accounts of the Middle Passage are what Europeans said happened. That's why we kept being called cargo. Right? The notion of what our ancestors actually were thinking will take us to tell. Why? Because we know our ancestors were saying something differently than what these folks were thinking. But also the question becomes, how in the world could you possibly know what the ancestors were thinking? Oh, you don't know who you're dealing with. Because we do ancestral talk. We talk to them, they talk to us. That's how I got the coming. That's how the coming came to me. Even the title. Here we come, here we come, here we come, here we come, here we come. And I had no idea whatsoever that I was going to write this book. Had no plan. I had no outline. First, of course, I'm not an outliner because I'm a composition, right? But I said, what in the world? I just heard water. And I opened my computer, and it just started flooding into this. And I was like, what in the world is going on? But but the ancestors also knew to whom they were giving it. See, it's like when you get a calling. God, help me today. It's like when you get a calling. God calls in the spirit, but we're interpreting that call in English. So that's why we are limited by what we believe God said. Oh, God Almighty, God Almighty. God told some of us, go heal. Heal. I need a healer. And we said, oh, you need a ministry. Why? Because what's the healing word in English? What's the word for a healer in English? And a doctor and a healer are not the same thing. If you're not careful, you'll be up in med school crying and hollering. God never told you to go to med school. God said heal. You can get doctors who are not healers. Absolutely. And most of our healers historically had not gone to med school, but they were healers, right? You can get a cook who's not a chef. See, in other words, what I'm really saying here is you've got to be expansive enough so that everything God says, there is capacity in your mind and in your spirit whereby to understand it. If not, it will have to go through our interpretive lens. And when we get through transmuting and synthesizing the word of God, right, we'll come out with the same Bible you've had from the beginning. That's not what God's saying. That's not what God is saying. But that's what we make God say, because that's the limit of my hearing. All right. The job of a key roho person is to help us understand how the Spirit is always trying to guide the people. How there are signs of the universe that come to help us know and to understand what we are supposed to do. That the universe really is the text upon which God writes. So the flow of the river. See, a key roho person, is supposed to understand that the river ain't flowing quite like it did last year. So, and then interpret that. What does that mean? The birds that passed through here, right, on their way south, they didn't come this year. Most of us ain't noticed no bird last year, this year, next year. Ain't even looking at no birds. They hadn't even paid attention. It's time to plant. The key roho person says, no, it's too early. You need 2 more weeks. Why? I'm telling you, the earth is just not right yet. It's not ready. This could be devastating for a community. Go ahead and plant. And then here comes the flood. Now, not only can you not plant, now you've wasted your seed. So the whole community is going to start because we didn't listen to what the key wrote. And here's the thing. You don't have to agree, nor do you have to see it. See, the beauty of gifts in a community is that we trust each other because you exist, not because you prove it to me. Right? I trust you because you exist. Right? Like my sister here, tell me your name, Portia. Right? On a personal level, I don't know Portia. Right? But I have a 6-year-old daughter who needs to go to the bathroom. Right? And she's like, "Where's the bathroom?" Portia, black people do this. Come here, honey. She ain't never even met Portia. Never even met Portia. Right? But Portia, you take it, and Portia, oh, fine, I got it, right? Stay with me now. However, what's also true, and under spiritual discernment, they're also true where there are some times where you might say, no, not you. See, you got to be clear, right? But all this is spiritual discernment, right? But what trust means really in the African community is you are trustworthy until you prove yourself otherwise. So, Sister Sager, absolutely. Right? That's who we are. That's what we do. You know how you were kids, you might bring a friend home, and mom and dad say, "Who is this?" "This is my friend." "Oh, okay." There's no interview. Right? Because if they came with you, they must be good. Right? Kiroho. Okay, how many is that, y'all? 7. Number 8 is what we call upanyaji. U-P-O-N-Y-A-G-I. Upanyaji, the great healer. The word upanyaji means literally to make whole that which was broken. Most of us know about, and this is probably the quote-unquote most popular gift we know of in America. Everybody's heard of a healer, sure. But I'm not sure we really understand what a real healer's job is, right? Because a healer's job is really not to come to you if you broke your arm. A healer's job is really not to, oh my God, I'm grieving my mother, and so a healer is going to come and help me through grief. That's not really a healer's job. In most African communities I've studied, a healer's job is far, 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 far more to keep us from needing healing. Not to pull you out of the hole once you're in it. Because then you're about to kill somebody. The healer's job is to help us see, right, that wounding is on the way. Let's shift something that it might avoid us. A healer might come to Portia and her husband and say, is all well at the house? And she says, oh yeah, we're doing fine. We're doing fine. And she might say, y'all be careful to really not take each other for granted. For as Portia, we're fine. What the healer observed, right, is ways that little ways where they've just kind of started to ignore each other as a couple. Right? They've not really even registered it. The healer did, though, because the healer knows what a seed of a wound looks like. See, coming to them when we've already decided to get a divorce, right? You don't need a healer now. You need a lawyer, right? The healer's job, right, is to try to keep us in wholeness. Right? To try to help us maintain that space. Getting you back there once you're out of it, right, is a whole hell of a lot of work. And it's really more than a healer is supposed to be doing, right? A healer's job is to walk us past conflict potentially. But also, the healer's job is to help us see the utility of chaos. Because, see, chaos always comes as an emergency help to a people. Chaos is not a negative thing. It is talked about that way in the West. It is not. The point of a storm usually the point of a storm, right, is there's a place that has been in drought, right? It's coming, attempting to balance it. Right? But because we're reading this out of preference, right, we can mistake and we can misunderstand it, right? Even to wake up and say, oh, dang, it's a rainy day. You're missing the beauty of healing. Because the rainy day, the reason it's raining is because you planted those flowers last week. You have forgot your own planting. The rain is helping you reach your own goal, right? And such is the job of a healer. And the job of a healer is also to help a people understand there is nothing that can come by you to harm you that's greater than your ability to heal it. Nothing. It keeps you from living in fear. Anything that's ever passed you, anything that's ever come to you, the only reason it came to you is because you have the ability to heal it. You are greater than all your circumstances, all of them. And this is why this is a very, very important. Y'all, not a doctor, a healer can seem very emotionally uninvested in your drama. Oh, let me cry and holler with you. Most healers are not going to do that. They're going to say, honey, here's what you need to do. Sweetie, and calm down. Calm down. Calm down. All of that's just performance. Calm it down. Calm it down. Calm it down. What you need to do, take 5 breaths, right? Take 5 breaths and remember who your grandmother is. And they'll walk away. Because that blood will be enough if you call it up. We do this with Jesus all the time. People call upon the blood of Jesus. Well, I'm here to tell you that the blood of Harriet will do it too. For me, the blood of Harold Black works. Right? The blood of Miss Ernestine works. right? And the job of a healer is to keep us clear, right, that conflict, disease, destruction usually comes because you ignored something. Dis-ease is what you stepped over in your spirit and in your emotion. And the reason it comes in the body is because it's so that now you cannot forget it. But it will manifest in the spirit first, then the body. And the way you get rid of it in the body is you got to return back to the spirit. So the point here is to say every single one of these gifts is in the middle of the middle passage. Every single one of these gifts is on that boat. When folks were standing up here last night, right, and we're doing all the different scenes, every single one of them had one of these gifts. But see, if we're not careful, we can be so terrorized, we can be so traumatized, right, that we give our best energy to our trauma. Right? That we give our best energy to our trauma, not to the discovery of the healing agent I have to dispel it. Right? This is extremely, extremely important. Listen, how 1862, 1863. How did our ancestors walk off plantations and build colleges? They should have been madder than we are. Slavery ended yesterday for them. Yesterday, last week. We've all been to these churches that was born in built in 1865. Built? Who built that? Who built that in 1865? And with what? But then some people ask also, how? What skill did they have? Now you know. Because I'm saying these gifts, right, were ever operative in our people. Right? The gift to build, the gift to love, the gift to inspire, the gift to... That's why we didn't have to have a doctor on the plantation, because there was a healer. Right? That's also why we didn't all jump into the river, because there was an inspirer who said, if you can just hold on another day, baby. Right? As they say, hold on just a little while longer. Right? Right. That is a Kuamasishan song. Everything is gonna be all right. Pray on. Right. Right. All they're saying is just hold on. Just hold. And people are like, oh, just hold. That's a Kuhamasishan talking. Right? Y'all understand? There were some people who said, the stars don't agree with our bondage. There were folks like Benjamin Banneker who comes along and makes a clock out of solid wood. And it keeps perfect time. How in God's name would this young man know how to make a clock first? 2, how do you do so with no wire? Then he's writing almanacs. Benjamin Banneker, how do you know fishing season? How do you know this? How are you doing architecture? They wouldn't give no black folk degrees in architecture. That's how you get Washington. You don't get Washington, D.C. without him. How did that happen? Frederick Douglass, how are you writing that mellifluously and you ain't never been to nobody's school? Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. A people so gifted that really their excellence is inconceivable. But it's really not inconceivable once you understand they brought the gift with them. We brought the gift to write with us. We did not learn writing in America. We learned English in America. We were a people of poetry before we ever came to this land. No, poetry is an English word. But the English did not create the beauty of the music of language. right? This is extremely, 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 extremely important. Extremely important. And as I move toward the close, one of the things that we have to understand is there are gifts that have now, for all practical purposes, been left out of our understanding of ourselves. We talk about 1 or 2 gifts, right? And I gave you a category of 8. And so when we start putting ourselves back together again, the reason the picture can be warped is because there are missing pieces. There are missing pieces. And until we get those missing pieces, we're not going to see that picture holistically, right? We can't see it collectively, right? So what happens on the middle passage is it seems now that all everybody talks about, because white folks wrote the story, is the healers. Why? Because there's so much trauma. Somebody understand what I'm saying. But I'm suggesting to you that if we could write this story, the healers are there, but all the other gifts are there too. And that's really the reason insanity did not overtake us, did not consume our minds. It's because of the collective nature of the other gifts that were there. And folks knew they had them. Absolutely, they knew they had them. Absolutely, they knew they had them. When they're brought above deck to dance, right? Some people are just doing this. They're just jumping up and down. But there are a few others who are, but not because just they love dancing, but because they knew what dancing does for everybody else. So they were dancing us back into our sanity. Because we know dance is a collective medium, right? Dancing is not an entertainment art in African places, right? Dancing is a spiritual medium by which we come to understand who we are and what we're doing and why, right? But it's going to take African eyes to see this, right? They knew that. They understood that. The Jali are on this ship, and they're looking around, and they're recording. They're recording how many of us are on here. The Jali are noting how many of us are here today versus who were here last week. The Jali are noting how many men are here versus how many women. Absolutely, positively. Extremely, extremely, extremely important. What we've got to do is we've got to go back through our history and we have to excavate what the ancestors said to us that we have never discovered. And where they hid it. They hid it in the spirituals. They hid it in the early slave narratives. And they hid it in English. But you got to know what you're looking for. Right? You have to know what you're looking for. Like the time in Frederick Douglass's narrative where Frederick Douglass gets just fed up and he jumps on his captor, Covey, right? And he whips this white man. Frederick Douglass should have died. But the part most people leave out is before he whipped him, a conjurer named Sandy gives him, he says, a package. And he puts it in his pocket. What was that? What was that? Critics have said, well, maybe it's some little talisman, maybe it was some magic powder. To diminish black folk and say magic is an insult. But the question is, how did Sandy even know what Frederick Douglass was getting ready to do? How do you even know? Because that was probably a spiritualist. That was probably a key role spiritualist who already knew that this confrontation was coming and he was prepared. But see, if not, we'll read it that this Frederick Douglass bumped into a crazy man. See, we're misunderstanding the whole thing. We're really misunderstanding the whole thing. When they said, swing low, sweet chariot, really the word is swing low, sweet Harriet. Y'all, Harriet is the chariot. That's why I swing low, because what's low? Deep into the South, because she was in the upper South. She was in Maryland. Swing low. Wow. Y'all understand what I'm saying? But see, we can look straight over it and been singing it for years. Singing it for years. Harriet, if you get there before I do, here's what I want you to do. Tell them I'm coming. Follow the drinking gourd. Why a gourd? Why not the cup? Why aren't we following the dip? Why aren't we following the tin cup? Somebody knew what a gourd was. Oh, God. But why a gourd? Y'all, it's staring us in the face, but we have not been reading it, right, through the lens and through the prism of being African ourselves. We're trying to do an American interpretation, right, of an African thing. Don't y'all know piecing quilts is the same art as weaving kente? Same art, same people. Same people. Folks like, well, I don't know where kente come from. The same place that quilt come from on your bed. But most people haven't even made the connection. That's our job. We dishonor our ancestors not to do it. And speaking of a gourd, what we're really doing here today, right? What we're really, really doing here today is understanding how to piece the magnificence of our people together again. Right? That's what we're really doing. We're trying to go back and get some of the gifts we threw away. Right? We're trying to make sure we don't value some pieces greater than we value other pieces. Right? We're trying to make sure that we've not thrown away, if you will, some ancestors because they're not quite what we prefer. We're trying to make sure that we're not reading the Middle Passage simply as something that happened to African people, instead of understanding the Middle Passage as the stage upon which the magnificence of African people is displayed. Right? It's very important that we understand this. It's very important that we understand this. And when folks captured African people, they captured healers, and they captured Jali, right? And they captured Imsaadians, and they captured Kuhamasicians, right? And they did that absolutely intentionally. It wasn't just grab somebody. In fact, I want y'all to be very clear. There are whole groups of Africans who didn't come. Right? Listen to me very carefully now. Listen to me very carefully. And this is why we have work to do even in the motherland. Because for all practical purposes, what Europe did, right, was to take the gifting out of Africa. This is why, somebody's going to get this, this is why America is so magnificent. This is African gifting claimed through whiteness. From the buildings to the music, right? To the it doesn't make anything amazing in America. African blood undergirds it. African blood undergirds it. But now you know why. Because the magnitude of the gifts brought here, right, was extreme. They dreamed, oh, these farmers, you know what? Their grains of rice are bigger than ours. That's why they brought the Angolans. Raise that rice here. That's why South Carolina becomes one of the richest colonies, because of rice production. which Africans had already been doing for thousands of years. You see what I mean? Right? This is how you get a thing called jazz. This is how you get a thing called gospel. Which is why you don't get jazz on the continent. Because jazz is the amalgamation of music forms. Jazz is the coming together of the fan and the ewe and the tiv and the ga and the sorere and the bara and the bassa in one musical moment. Entities who thought they might have disagreed might have even warred with each other. Now they create together. So when we were captured, right, something traumatic, of course, happens. Okay, yeah, no problem. Let's get it. Yes. Wow. Just touch it. Just touch it and pass it on. Yes. Now, you know what? We don't need a hammer. Spirit just gave this to me. We don't need a hammer. We're going to do what they did. Right? So all these gifts working in concert, right? This is us in our wholeness, right? This is us in our completeness. And you get a whole gourd, right? The second they captured us, right, I just want you to slam it and break it. This is what occurs. Keep going till it breaks. Yes, and leave it there, just like that. Just like that. This is what happens to our people. This is what happens to our people. But also what happened to our people, is we keep calling this now the gourd. We keep calling this the gourd. This is not the gourd. This ain't it either. And if we're not careful, God, we'll do this. We try to pick up the pieces we think matter. What's wrong with this? And then, who is this? One by one, they took us away. We lay in the belly of ships, rocked to and fro day and night until we knew we'd never see home again. Many of us died, but many of us lived too. For each one thrown overboard, we borrowed their life force and became stronger, clearer, more determined than ever to survive and even thrive in the land of bondage. They could buy our bodies, but they couldn't buy our spirits. They could separate our families, but not our collective souls. what's profound, that's the Caribbean right there. Do you see this map? It fell right exactly where that's Canada right up there. So we decided to become a new people. The Fan, the Ewe, the Ga, the Hausa, the Yoruba, the Ashanti, the Mandinka, the Fulani, the Serere, the Akan, melded in the midst of the great waters into one united people who meant to take home with us everything we had brought. This was a different lesson and a difficult one, but it was the reason for our coming. And with each boat, we just kept on coming and coming and coming and coming until realizing that we possessed a power we could not access. We'd known it in the motherland, but bondage and trauma makes one forget one's deep structure. It was a Wolof man who told us what we needed to know. Now only standing together, only organizing would save us. And that's what we began to do. Speaking was difficult, and most of us spoke varying tongues, yet we discovered that all of us gestured similarly. So we began to inquire as to who and what we were. We were healers. We were lovers of the land. We were leaders of initiation. Some were members of order and balance. Some were keepers of sacred rituals. Some were weavers of cloth. Some were makers of knowledge and wisdom. Some were mighty storytellers. Some were manipulators of iron and stone. Some were builders of structures. Some were keepers of the children. And some were sent to remind us of our beauty. But all of us were in the same boat together. And from that day, from those days, we were in the great waters. We have gathered ourselves to assure that we would live. We whispered as we planned, God Almighty, help me today, runaways from south to north. We cooked food and hid it in our aprons to assure that our children ate just as theirs did. We picked each other's row of cotton when some were too sick to do it. We breastfed children of mothers whose milk would not come. We made salve from tree leaves to mend the wounds laid upon the backs of those who could not keep their silence. We stood together. We discovered the piece of divinity each of us possessed, and we gave it away whenever called upon. We gathered in the darkness of night by riversides and discussed how we would make it from day to day. Sometimes we cried or cried out. Most times we were silent. Our differences were never supposed to divide us. Our egos had sprouted and left us blind to our own insight. Now, only standing together, only fighting together would save us. These gourd pieces are now scattered everywhere. Somebody's job is to get them. Listen to me, y'all. Hey, the wholeness is still in those pieces. The wholeness is still in those pieces. The gourd is not more whole unbroken. It's not more whole unbroken. It is just as whole if we'll fix it. It's just as whole if we'll fix it. And we're too magnificent not to be able to find all the pieces. Our job is to find these pieces and make them fit back together again. If we don't do that, the ancestors are not pleased. One PhD doesn't do it. One person making 200,000, that ain't it. That's not it. Somebody has to include the little bitty shards. Somebody has to fit into place the drunk man on the street and ask, how does he fit into the gourd? The crazy lady, where is her place in the gourd? The brothers incarcerated, which piece belongs to them? The elders who transitioned in the last year or two without their due celebration, where are they? And our calling finally, as healers, that's you. Our calling finally as Kuamasicians, the inspirers, that's some of you. Our calling as those who love order and balance. Our calling, those of you who are the healers. Our calling, those of you who love to show us the peace we cannot seem to find, is for you to come and find it. I call all of you, I charge all of you to volunteer yourself to find a peace and put this back together again. Ashe.
And we're going to continue to mend the broken pieces.
God, help me, oh God.
This evening, I want to, first of all, let's thank God for our master class presenter, Dr. Black. Thank you. Because you are such a hungry crowd of learners, you missed your break. You didn't take a break, so we went straight through, and we're getting ready to break for lunch. There's an invitation that I'd like to offer. We're getting ready to take the wreath that's in the lobby that we had constructed for Maafa. We're going to take it, if you will, almost as a procession. We're going to go at 1 o'clock to the New Lots Library, Sankofa Park area, and there are the remains of an African, unidentified, that helped to build and make East New York what it is today. And it's upon the backs and black bodies and black blood, our enslaved ancestors, that East New York at one point was considered the marketplace of the entire country. And that story is going to be told. And I'd like us to tell that story every year. Because, I'll just put it this way, Dr. Black, you're here on Hendrix, right? But there's Skank. And Skank, and also the Hendrix family, but when we go to the park, across the street is a church with a cemetery, and you will see the names of those families. Happens to be the blocks on which we live, the names of the blocks. Mr. Hendrix, Mr. Skank. What we learned about Mr. Skank is that he was the largest enslaver in all of Flatbush. And curiously, on Skank, 818, St. Paul Community Baptist Church imagined the possibility of educating our sons who are falling through the cracks. And so out of the last 7 years, 5 years prior to the pandemic, our sons outscored every single demographic in the state of New York. So, on a street named for a man who enslaved our people and was the largest enslaver in the area, and at one point you do understand that Brooklyn had more slaves than even any other area in the South. You'll hear that story this afternoon. And what St. Paul Community Baptist Church is doing is we're creating a whole new narrative, a whole new story. And so we're going to bring that wreath, and the councilman just called me while the presentation was going on and said that the Parks Department has cleaned up the area. They've got a little pop-up tent and all of that. But he also said to me that there's been some prostitution happening in the area. There's been all kinds of activity and crime. And he said, you may not want to go down there. And I said, Councilman, that's the perfect time and the perfect reason to go down there. We're going to lay the wreath, and we're going to declare we're going to do the work. Lastly, the new library is going to be constructed. And when you walk through our museum, you will notice on the walls, our artisans have taken many of our artifacts that we purchased from a curator in South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. We have now gotten permission. We're going to put those artifacts in the brand new library. In Sankofa Park, which I'm going to push to make it Sankofa Square, and St. Paul Community Baptist Church, we will lead in that effort. And so I want to invite you, go get yourself something to eat. Amen, on your own. Go get yourself something to eat. We will meet you. I understand that we do have, I think, a few. Mr. Chamble is doing some runs, but I know we have a couple of vans for those who may need transportation. Some of us may want to walk, but it is on new lots across from the library. You will see us standing there telling that story, and I look to see you there. And then our 7 o'clock presenter is with us as well, and she's going to carry this narrative and thread it. They gave me a preview, and they kind of they got me good today, because I didn't even know the two of y'all worked this thing out. You don't know what we're talking about. At 7 o'clock, you will see what we're talking about. And we're looking in this moment to identify certain gifts in this moment that the village needs. And what I really love about this presentation, Dr. Black, is what we're really trying to do is become a greater example and bear witness of a prophetic community. And way too often, so much weight is placed and priorities placed on one person who is the called and the gifted person. But what does it look like when every member of the body, the community, is valued? And when there is an issue in the community, we know where to look for the giftedness within our own community. And then the other thing I will say about your presentation today, and I know there are probably questions and all of that, but this is a masterclass. Let me also say that what I've learned from you today is the limitations that are placed upon us by way of Western culture and English. That we may have to go back down to Torrey and get the medicine, and in part, the medicine is right here. The medicine is right here. It's inside of us. The medicine is inside of us. When we come together as a community, nothing can stop us. And if we could do what we did on those death ships, and if we could indeed, if we can conjure the gifts that are within us that preserved us on those death ships, then in this moment, we can do the same thing, because greater is he and greater are they. I don't know, was I supposed to say it that way? Greater is he and greater is they that are in us than all the realities that are in the world. We can certainly do it. Tomorrow morning, so tonight, I got y'all for tonight, right? Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., scratch that, 9 a.m., we're under the Healing Hut. Mike Elam, Dr. Elam, you did a great job. Alice, great job. Carla, great job. All of our healers. And we've got a healer all the way from South Africa is with us. Brother Lito, would you please stand? And perhaps he'll be able to tell his story and lead us in some healing exercises as well. So the healing journey is happening. I want to acknowledge, and it's 12 o'clock and we got to go. Pastor, keep me, if I miss anything, let me know and keep me to the time. But I want to acknowledge Yvonne Hillman, who's the director of our Maafa ministry. So let me be crystal clear. We will stream the masterclass tonight at 7. We will stream tomorrow's 2 presentations, but we will not stream the Maafa presentation Wednesday night, but we will stream the speaker. There are portions that we will not stream. And Pastor just, we working on our relationship. We working on our partnership. And I said, well, Pastor, why don't you just, advertise to the people to come out? She said, I won't. I said, why not? She said, because you already told them where to be. And people are going to have to learn how to be obedient. And she said, if they miss it, they miss it. I said, you're so mean. She said, no, I'm not being mean. What's her gift? What's her gift? She's one of Usawa. That was her. That was her Usawa. She got me good. And I said, all right, Pastor, I'm going to take my cues from you on that one. So listen, if you're here today, thank God. If you're streaming in this moment, thank God, because there are some things you ought never miss, and the Maafa is one of them. I'll see you at 1 o'clock. I'll see you at 1 o'clock at the Sankofa Park, and I'll see you back here on campus at 7 o'clock. Cast, would you please remain? I'd like to have a quick conversation with you over to my right. Blessings. What's that? Do you get to ask questions?